The interest of my investor is paramount and everything is secondary. Hence, to insulate the investors from potential losses, we have withdrawn the FPO. This decision will not have any impact on our existing operations as well as our future plans. We will continue to focus on timely executions and delivery of projects. The fundamentals of our company are very strong. Our balance sheet is healthy and assets robust. Our EBITDA levels and cash flows have been very strong, and we have an impeccable track record of fulfilling our debt obligations. We will continue to focus on a long-term value creation, and growth will be managed by our internal accruals. Once the market stabilizes, we will review our capital market strategy.
Well, on the 1st of February crash, the Adani group companies lost about 1.8 lakh crore rupees and wiped out nearly 7.5 lakh crore rupees in the 5 trading session. In fact, here's a breakup that we are going to get for you just to explain how it has been happening. In fact, there you see it on your group. This is the decline that you can see percentage-wise on the 1st of February. And this is the overall one. This is the fall which has happened in the last 1 week. Now, these are the 10 of the Adani group stocks, and we are going to go back to that graphic so that we can explain that. But till then, let me explain to you what exactly has happened in the Adani Green Energy. For example, this is a breakup of what has happened. In the Adani Green Energy, the highest value was that of 3,048 on 19th of April. By 31st of Jan, that was one of the highest values that it had ever touched when it had a massive run on the stock market, following which that it had completely plunged. Let's also tell you how the investors are now sizing up, and this is very critical because on the LIC's exposure, and that is one of the biggest things that is being talked about, the LIC's exposure to this has been about 0.975. This is LIC's exposure to the Adani group, and this is very significant for us to understand because at the end of it, people like you and me have money which is invested in the LIC. Also, when it comes to the numbers, the figures, it's about 30,127 crore rupees LIC has invested in the Adani group, and this is the figure which is on the 30th of January 2023, the latest figures which are available to us. Let's also tell you, so far, of course, remember the estimated banking exposure to the Adani group is pitted around 0.55%. This as per the CLSA. There are no specific estimates which are coming in from the banks. Of course, the RBI has already asked all the banks to figure out what is their exposure, and we don't have any official figures for that so far. Let's also tell you about how there is about 1.2 lakh crore rupees consolidated debt of Adani's from these banks. However, the finance secretary earlier in the day had come out and said that we are not worried about this not being repaid, saying that depending on the profits as well as the assets that they have, that they are very confident, that the banks are very confident that that money is going to be returned to the banks. Let's also tell you how about 3.4% of the Adani Green Energy is being held by Indian mutual funds. So whoever's invested in Indian mutual funds, that is the exposure that people like you would be having. When it comes to the Adani total gas which has been held, that is 2.8% of the Adani gas which has been held by the Indian mutual funds as well. Now, all of these figures are now going to be mounting up. Important for us to take a look at what really is the exposure that people like you and me, who may not have even directly invested with the Adanis, may still take a hit. Also, 3.6% of the Adani Green Energy has been held by Indian mutual funds. These are the different kind of companies out of the 10 companies that the Indian mutual funds have already been investing in, which is why their exposure is going to be now critical. Let's also now hear as to why the LIC, the SBI, and even the finance secretaries are now rushing in to try and assure the investors that the exposure to the Adani group is very limited and that there are adequate safeguards which are in place.
Ability to repay a loan depends on the profits, on the cash flows, which the banks believe are sufficient. The valuations is what the markets are looking at. It's not the cash flows, and the cash flows are looked after by the banks.
Okay.
So there's a difference.
Our exposure is to the assets, physical assets, and they are having adequate cash generation, and we have not experienced in the past any kind of a default from this entity, and we don't expect that we will have any challenge because the assets are having very robust cash flows. So as far as our lending is concerned, we don't envisage any problem on this particular account.
Well, of course, these assurances are coming in, but the Adani row has now resonated in the parliament as well. The opposition is holding the Prime Minister responsible for the alleged fraud and unprecedented stock crash which it had triggered. Now, the opposition has alleged that investment by LIC, the public sector banks as well as financial institutions in Adani companies is losing the market value, and hard-earned money of crores of Indians are now in danger. In fact, opposition has also alleged that Adani has benefited from Prime Minister's largesse and has become the third largest richest in the world in a short span of time because of that. Of course, following this crash, his position in the list of billionaires has now been slipping as well. Meanwhile, the opposition have demanded an investigation by a parliamentary panel or a Supreme Court monitored committee into the allegations of fraud. The opposition has also demanded an investigation into the forced investments made by Life Insurance Corporation, the State Bank of India and other public institutions of the Adani Group. Well, the opposition has sought a debate on the Hindenburg report as well.
जो घटनाएं आज देश में आर्थिक दृष्टि से घोटाले हो रहे हैं, उसके बारे में एक आवाज में सदन में उठाना ये हमारा सबका मकसद है। इसीलिए हमने एक नोटिस दी थी 267 के तहत। मैं आपके लिए वो पढ़ के बताऊंगा ताकि उसमें क्या चीज़ें हमने लिखी है। दैट दिस हाउस डू सस्पेंड 0 आवर एंड रिलेवेंट रूल्स रिलेटिंग टू क्वेश्चन आवर एंड अदर बिजनेसेस ऑफ द डे टू डिस्कस द इशू ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट बाय LIC, पब्लिक सेक्टर बैंक्स and financial institutions in companies losing market value। ये हमारा नोटिस है और ये नोटिस पे हम चर्चा चाहते थे, लेकिन हर वक्त हमारे नोटिस रिजेक्ट होते हैं और हमारा डिमांड यही है चर्चा कराओ, और हमारी मांग ये है कि या तो जॉइंट पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी बनाओ और इसकी इंक्वायरी करो, या नहीं है तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के चीफ जस्टिस के नेतृत्व में कमेटी बनाकर इसको इंक्वायरी कराइए और डे टू डे रिपोर्ट बाहर करते जाइए।
देखिए, अडानी के झूठ और फ्रॉड का जो पहाड़ है वो ताश के महल की तरह धीरे धीरे गिर रहा है, और जब वो ताश के महल की तरह गिर रहा है तो इस देश के करोड़ों निवेशकों के मन में चिंता है। जिन लोगों ने अपना पैसा LIC में लगा रखा है, जिन लोगों ने अपना पैसा SBI में लगा रखा है, क्योंकि हजारों लाखों करोड़ के लोन SBI और LIC ने अडानी को दे रखा है। भारत के प्रधानमंत्री को सामने आके लोगों की चिंता दूर करनी चाहिए। भारत की वित्त मंत्री को सामने आकर ये बताना चाहिए कि RBI क्या कर रही है, सेबी क्या कर रही है, ED क्या कर रही है, CBI क्या कर रही है। इतने बड़े भ्रष्टाचार पर अब तक पूरी सरकार खामोश क्यों है?
We want, many of the political parties are demanding a JPC. We want a proper investigation into what has happened, and we want justice for the people, the ordinary citizens of the country who've invested in LIC and also in the public banks like SBI. It is a lifetime earning and saving, and for me, especially when it comes to LIC, it is the security which people want to leave behind for their next generation, for their children. So all that has been put to question today. We are saying the whole thing is morally incorrect, and we want an investigation, proper investigation into what has happened.
First thing is the government must explain. My government must explain about the institutional oversight failure. If there was any failure at all, otherwise the government must come and say, no, the institutional oversight was perfect. They must explain that, but the government is only maintaining a silence.
There's also a demand of forming a committee and then the inquiry by the CGI.
The leadership of the parties asked it, but at least we should start by the government responding. If the government responds, then we can respond and then we can take it forward.
डिबेट होना चाहिए, ये तो मुल्क का मसला है। एक तरफ दुनिया में तीसरे नंबर पे अमंग द रिचेस्ट मैन अडानी जी आए, वो कैसे आए रातों रात? यहाँ तो इतने बड़े सारे और भी सारे लोग हैं, एशियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में आप देखें, बरसगीर में देखिए आप, लेकिन अडानी आज से 4 साल पहले या 8 साल पहले कहीं नाम ही नहीं था गौतम अडानी जी का। तो इन्होंने अचानक ये छलांग कैसे मारी?